insanely unhealthy people that are dictating the health regulations of what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
You can't dine outside, and I'm looking at fucking Skeletor telling me this.
Yeah,
You're out of your fucking mind. You're out of your fucking mind.
But that's the problem, is that the second that you agree with one thing,
right, they want to label you.
They label you, and it's everybody. I don't care who the fuck you are. You agree with something conservative and you agree with something liberal. I don't give a fuck who you are. Just within this like tribal mindset where everything is black and white, what they do is they get votes by making everybody the absolute villain. And they're abusing it for votes. But if you're actually going to be like a real person, you're going to be both. I mean, Chris Rock had that great joke. There's something I'm conservative about, something I'm liberal about, whatever. And it's like, yeah, that's every human being.
Every human being. Except really crazy people that are just ideologically captured.
Grifting.
Yeah, well, there's grifters, but there's also people that are just in a fucking cult, you know, and those are the people that wanted to burn Christians. And those are the people that, you know, I mean, this is...
How far does that cult go? That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like you let that start right now. Where does it end?
Right.
Like if they're the bad guy and they're awful and they're Nazis.
You gotta kill them. Yeah, I mean, that's what people have done throughout time. They've othered.
They dehumanize.
Yeah, they dehumanize.
And once you're not a human, you could do anything to that person.
Right, right. You could burn witches. It's a witch.
You could harass them. You could harass their families.
Oh, yeah.
And it's okay because they disagree with you and they agree with something quote-unquote evil.
Exactly.
When you might agree with something that your side also thinks is evil.
Right.
But you're not willing to admit it because you're scared.
Right. They'll whisper it to you.
Exactly.
I'm with you on this one.
We meet all these people. Like I talk to these, sometimes these motherfuckers from like super liberal organizations will like DM me and I'll ask them about it.
Yeah.
And they're honest in the DMs. And I'm like, you fucking phony.
Yeah.
You fucking phony, dude. It's a grift. That's where I think it's a grift. I think
it's more of a cowardice than a grift.
Yeah.
With a lot of folks, they're just scared of encountering the wrath of the cult.
You just got to be careful that when you have the wrath of the cult, that you don't ease into the comfort of the side that supports you.
Right.
Because you'll feel their wrath the second you move away from them.
Right.
You're a man on an island, and it's hard to be on an island because now both sides can be upset at you.
Right.
It's like. Yeah, that's the trickiest thing. When you feel like the total wrath of the opposition, it's hard to be like, but they do have a point about these certain things.
You got to do that, though.
You have to, or else you just become the same fraud that you hate.
Yeah, you become them, and I don't subscribe to that. I think you have to always say what you actually think about things and look at them objectively if you can. You know, and sometimes we're gonna fail at that because we're gonna be in the moment. You're gonna be overwhelmed or captured or trapped in your thoughts, but at the end of the day, we all want similar things. We all want a peaceful society where your children and your family and your friends can prosper, and you want people to have the freedom to live the way they choose. The problem is when people start infringing on other people's freedoms. Yeah. That's what drives me crazy. That's what's driving me crazy about this gay marriage thing, and that's what's driving me crazy about this abortion thing. It's like, who are you to fucking tell people what they can and can't do? Like, it's not what benefits us as a culture. What benefits as a culture is trying to see how the other people see and feel and find common ground.
You don't even have to agree, but like a lack of rigidity. Like, I think most human beings, right? I don't care how liberal you are. Most human beings who have had a kid will say, at a certain point in time, in the belly, it's a human.
Yes.
9 months.
Right. It's a fucking
human. It's a fucking human.
Right.
Okay, so we agree at a certain point it's a human. Then we can back up from then when the right or wrong or when somebody's right it is to terminate that thing. 1 week? Okay, who knows? Yeah. But we to look at something and go, 9 months, you should be able to do it. That's a little much, I think, for most people, if you're being honest.
Right.
1 week... we don't even know if it's going to come to term. I think 25% of I think women that are pregnant end up having miscarriages. Some of them don't even know it because they think it might be their period. Like, it's a very common thing that happens. So if we just had a little bit more like elasticity and we could just be like, hey, I agree there's a point in time where, it definitely is a life and that'd be a little bit too much.
Right.
8 months that's a lot. Well, a week, 2 weeks.
Yeah. 2 weeks is like what, we got like 30 cells?
Yeah.
What is it? It's like one of those really complicated and messy human dilemmas. And that's what abortion is.
Yeah.
There's no I mean, some people are like, at the moment of conception, And I think most of those people, that's a religious notion.
And that's okay too. I'll go, okay, I understand where you're coming from for that perspective because you believe in that. And that's okay. And I understand why you feel that way.
Yeah.
I'll just say that. And then I'll go, but what about these horrible circumstances? Wouldn't you feel like it might be okay in these horrible circumstances? And then if they could just remove themselves from the group for a second and be like, okay, maybe in those, I'm not saying I'm giving you permission. Ultimately, it's like God who gives the permission, but I see why someone would want to.
Yeah.
That's all you have to say.
Yeah.
And then you don't feel like you're calling someone an asshole and a murderer every fucking 2 seconds.
Right.
You can't have a conversation with someone who goes, you're a murderer.
But then you have people that like show up at these rallies and like brag about how many abortions they've had.
That's
and,
the
like,
extreme that we're
that's
talking
the
about.
extreme.
It's just like,
and that drives
you're
people.
proud of that?
It polarizes people in the opposite way.
Yeah.
You know, there's a funny clip, not funny, but it's very telling from Joe Biden, and it's from like the 1980s, where he said abortion should be legal and it should be rare. And you know, and that it's always tragic, but it should be rare. And it's, you know, it's very interesting because it's such a nuanced perspective in comparison to the way he talks about it now. And just the party, like the party has a line. Like someone told me this of Elizabeth Warren, that what she does is she has interns that search on Twitter for how people think about things.
And then she just
And then
takes
that's what she runs with. That's what she talks about. I don't know if that's true, but I knew if you want to say like cynically about certain politicians, for sure they do that.
Clickbait
There's certain
politics.
politicians that don't give you any feeling whatsoever of sincerity and of being a real human being.
No.
They seem like they're just poll machines. You know, and
it's
that's
a job.
And that's what scares people if you're talking about people's rights.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking about a woman's right to choose, if you're talking about a gay person's right to be married, it's like to have people they have these rigid pole-oriented perspectives on this, where I'm on the right-wing party, so I am going to say this because this is what my side believes and this is what my side wants. Like,
what if politics was like jury duty, in that like we all acknowledge we don't want to do it, but it was our civic duty to society